First reading. A reading from the second letter of Samuel, chapter 5, verses 1 to 7 and 10. Are the tribes of Israel then came to David at Hebron and said, Look, we are your own flesh and bone. In days past, when Saul was our king, it was you who led Israel on its campaigns, and to you it was that Yahweh promised, You are to shepherd my people Israel and be leader of Israel. So all the elders of Israel came to the king at Hebron, and King David made a pact with them in Yahweh's presence at Hebron, and they anointed David as king of Israel. David was 30 years old when he became king, and he reigned for 40 years. In Hebron, he reigned over Judah for 7 years and 6 months. Then he reigned in Jerusalem over all Israel and Judah for 33 years. The king and his men then marched on Jerusalem, on the Jebusites living in the territory. These said to David, You will not get in here. The blind and the lame will hold you off. But David captured the citadel of Zion, that is, the city of David. David grew stronger and stronger, and Yahweh, God of Sabbath, was with him. This is the word of Lord. Thanks be to God. A reading from the Gospel according to Mark, chapter 3, verses 22 to 30. The scribes who had come down from Jerusalem were saying, Beelzebul is in him, and it is through the prince of devils that he drives devils out. So he called them to him and spoke to them in parables. How can Satan drive out Satan? If a kingdom is divided against itself, that kingdom cannot last. And if a household is divided against itself, that household can never last. Now, if Satan has rebelled against himself and is divided, he cannot last either. It is the end of him. But no one can make his way into a strong man's house and plunder his property unless he has first tied up the strong man. Only then can he plunder his house. In truth, I tell you, all human sins will be forgiven, and all the blasphemies ever uttered. But anyone who blasphemes against the Holy Spirit will never be forgiven, but is guilty of an eternal sin. This was because they were saying, There is an unclean spirit in him.